Hello, I'm Christian Fraser, and this is The Context.
Bashar al-Assad. This area used to be full of posters of Bashar and his father because it was a centre of loyalists.
Now we can breathe much easier, and we're hoping for better days. The regime was pressuring us. They refused to set us free.
All nations should support an inclusive and transparent process and refrain from interference, and made clear that the United States will recognize and fully support a future Syrian government that results from this process.
In Syria, a new Prime Minister addresses his people. He has already set up a council of ministers, but what sort of country will he be administering? We'll ask the former US Ambassador to Syria, Robert Ford. Also tonight, 26-year-old Luigi Mangione is charged with the murder of a US healthcare executive. What do we know about him? Why has he become this folk hero on social media? And the biggest contract ever awarded in pro sport. Who is Juan Soto, and why are the New York Mets paying him $765 million? A very good evening. Israel says it has completely destroyed Syria's naval fleet. It's been carrying out hundreds of strikes on military targets across the country since Bashar al-Assad was ousted at the weekend. We'll continue to talk about Syria later in the programme, but for now we'll take a short break. Around the world and across the UK, you're watching BBC News. Welcome back. The man charged with the murder of a healthcare executive in New York has appeared in court today in Pennsylvania for an extradition hearing. Luigi Mangione was heard shouting and yelling as he arrived. His lawyer says his client is contesting extradition. The judge has denied bail. Neda Tawfik is following developments from New York. Outbursts in court. What is he contesting, and why would he not want to go back to New York, Neda? It's quite an extraordinary story, and the reaction online as well to it, really fascinating. Barry, we're out of time. Thank you very much indeed for your thoughts this evening. We'll take a short break. At the other side of the break, we're going to talk about the biggest contract in professional sport and also the situation in France. They're still searching for a new Prime Minister. How far did they get today? We'll bring you the news on that. Stay there. We'll be right back. Hello, I'm Christian Fraser. You're watching The Context on BBC News. The $765 million man. We'll take a look at the baseball contract that is making history. Before all that, we will get some sport that is not baseball. Here's Jane Dougal.
Hello there, Christian. We start with the Champions League, and Liverpool stay top of the phase table after a win away at Girona. It was Mo Salah who scored the only goal of the match to give the visitors their victory. And that's all the sport for now, Christian.
Jane, thank you very much. We're going to stay with sport and switch to baseball. One of the sport's brightest stars is swapping the Bronx for Queens and making history in the process. The New York Mets have agreed to pay Juan Soto $765 million over the next 15 years in what is thought to be the biggest contract in the history of pro sports. His move from the Yankees will net him around $51 million a year at the tender age of 26. We'll keep following the career of Juan Soto, see where it goes. We'll take a short break. Around the world and across the UK, you're watching BBC News. The French President Emmanuel Macron has signalled tonight that he will appoint a new Prime Minister in the next 48 hours. He met today with some of the party leaders, although he refused to meet with the hard right National Rally or the far left France Insoumise. The previous administration collapsed, you remember, last week after the two parties of the extreme united in a vote of no confidence. There's still little hope for a quick resolution, though. The Greens have ruled out joining a national interest government. Paul, good to talk to you. Thank you very much for coming on the programme. We're going to take a short break. The other side of that break, our panel will be here. We'll focus plenty more on events in Syria today. Also, we're going to talk about the move of the working class union members towards the right. We see it in America. We're starting to see it here in the UK. Why? What is going wrong for parties on the left in terms of their messaging? All that to come. We'll be right back. Hello, I'm Christian Fraser. You're watching The Context on BBC News.
Bashar al-Assad. This area used to be full of posters of Bashar and his father because it was a centre of loyalists.
Now we can breathe much easier, and we're hoping for better days. The regime was pressuring us. They refused to set us free.
All nations should support an inclusive and transparent process and refrain from interference, and made clear that the United States will recognize and fully support a future Syrian government that results from this process.
Joining me tonight on the panel, the former Conservative Minister Justine Greening and the political commentator and columnist for MSNBC, Julio Ricardo Varela. A very good evening and a warm welcome to the programme. Joe Biden is in the twilight of his presidency, but suddenly out of years of chaos and war comes an historic opportunity in the Middle East. Hezbollah is weakened, Iran and Russia retreating, Assad gone, and a new power dynamic in Damascus. There may only be 40 days left, but Washington believes there is time enough to put Biden's stamp on this new regional order. What it does underline is the radically different approaches the two presidents take to foreign policy. Fawaz, always good to get your thoughts on the issue. Thank you very much for coming on. We're right up against the break. We'll take that break. We'll discuss the spending review, the other side of that. Do stay with us. We'll be right back. The Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, has promised to take an iron fist to any waste in Britain's public services. Government departments have been told to find 5% inefficiency savings ahead of a spending review the government will complete by June next year. The Chancellor was on a visit to a hospital in Kent today. She says each department will be expected to prioritise spending on policies that contribute towards the Prime Minister's plan for change. There are mandarins looking under every carpet for piles of cash as we speak. It's going to be one of those cycles in government at the moment. The spending review coming in June. We'll continue to watch that. We'll take a short break. We're up against it, and then at the other side of the break, we're going to talk about the new cabinet, the incoming cabinet, particularly Pete Hegseth, the Defence Secretary. He's been on the Hill again today. Did he convince them? We'll be right back. Hello, I'm Christian Fraser. You're watching The Context on BBC News. Unacceptable security failures is how a US congressional report has described the assassination attempt on Donald Trump in Pennsylvania. We'll bring you the latest. fact, let's start right there. The failed attempt to assassinate Donald Trump in Pennsylvania was tragic and preventable, according to the final report that's just emerged from the Congressional Task Force investigating the case. They argued that the various failures led to everyone involved in the rally being exposed to grave danger. Gary O'Donoghue's been looking through the report. So not one single moment, Gary, that they could pinpoint that led to the almost assassination of the former president. It was just a litany of failures. No, it's not that big. Listen, we'll take a short break. Stay with us. Around the world and across the UK, you're watching BBC News. Uber has 5 million subscribed members here in the UK. Plenty of them provide feedback on the drivers that Uber is using. But how many passengers knew that they too are being scored? Clearly not Harry Wallett, the consumer columnist for The Times, who's sitting here in the studio, who's just received what he described as a very passive-aggressive email from the company titled, "Keep an eye on your rating." Apparently, out of 5, he is down at the lowly score of 4.58, which apparently is really bad. And attached to that email Harry was sent were tips to improve his rating. Respect for drivers and cars, nothing wrong with that. Keep conversations casual and friendly. Avoid distracting the driver. Don't bring a child without a car seat. Buckle up without being told. It's all pretty straightforward stuff, but something's going wrong for Harry. And you're being scored down. Do you know why? Have you managed to get to the bottom?
Well, I received this email actually a couple of weeks ago while I was in America.
Well, Harry, it's lovely of you to come in. I've booked you an Uber. If you could tip when you get home, keep my score high.
Yeah. It's Goodhart's law of economics, which is when the measure becomes the target, it stops being a good measure. And the measure is 5 stars or nothing. So, that's the problem.
The only way's up. Thank you for coming in. It's time for the panel. Justine, what do you want to talk about tonight?
Exactly.
Not too shabby, actually, my accent.
Not too
I'll have
shabby,
you know. Yeah, brilliant. Well, I love those two stories. Thank you very much indeed for your company this evening. Really good fun to have you alongside. We will, of course, do this same time tomorrow. I hope you will join us for that. In the meantime, have a very good evening. Thanks for watching.
Hello from the BBC Sports Centre, I'm Jane Dougal. We start with the Champions League, and 6 wins from 6 means that Liverpool stay top of the phase table after beating Girona in Spain. And that's all the sport for now. Bye-bye.
Hello there. For many of us, Tuesday was dominated by lots of grey skies.